Welcome back to the channel. After some time digging through the paranormal forums on 4chan, I found 4 green text stories from anonymous users that I felt are worth sharing. Let's get right into them. Grew up poor. Have to share a room with Big Sis. Room is tiny, so we really complain about having each other's stuff in our zones. She gets this huge plant leaf thing from IKEA with her allowance that she saved up. Hangs it on the wall between our beds, so it's kind of like a partition. First night it's up, I'm staring up at it from bed, sort of at an angle, so I'm looking partially underneath, if that makes sense. It makes a really weird shadow on the ceiling that looks like someone looking over the edge of it. It freaked me out, but I didn't say anything. Would just have gotten laughed at. Every night for like 6 months, I look up at this thing and think how weird the shadow is. Can't figure out what it is, seemingly no cause for it. One night, I'm looking at it and almost convince myself I can see eyes. Almost like that reflection animals have, but way duller. Actually getting kind of freaked out, suddenly I hear from my sister's bed, "You see it too, right?" Both of us flip out and turn the lights on. Of course, nothing there. Take the leaf down and try to forget about it. Turns out she'd been seeing it for months, always in the same spot, always looking down at me. Being the Georgian military. Watch duty with a buddy in the middle of a semi-wooded area near the Russian border, Abkhazian state, that is also a mountain. I have the high ground. Have an AK-74, middle of the night, just chatting with the buddy. Hear a sound coming like buzzing and gargling. Look down from the hill. Nothing there, or whatever that thing was hiding behind a tree. Ask the buddy what it might be. He thinks it is an animal, but we don't care, we have guns. See something moving. It is a bush. Bush is moving towards us. Not a ghillie suit, a big bush, like 4 meters. We shoot a warning shot into the ground. We are screaming at this point. We start to shoot the bush, nothing happens. When it got closer, I saw these sticks under it, like it was using its branches to walk towards us. I had 57 bullets on me after the first mag was gone. I ran back, and so did my buddy. We are running to the base on the hilly area. Reach base, tell Sergeant what happened. After giving us a disappointed look, goes outside with both of us. The bush is still moving. Towards the base. I saw it. My buddy saw it. The Sarge saw it. Thinks it's a ghillie suit. Shoots it with better aim. Nothing. It still comes towards us slowly. Goes closer to the bush. He sees it. Confirms it is a moving bush. Tells us to go back to the base and get the others. 2 more people come out. 5 people now watching a bush move. One guy says it's a new thing made by the Russians to mess with us. Go back to the base and lock everything up. 2 guys are on guard. Sergeant is making a call and not getting believed. The bush stops outside the base. Go to inspect it. It stopped moving. It is a normal bush now. It is now 6 in the morning. The sun is rising. Sergeant goes to look at the bush. Sees it's a normal bush. Cuts the bush with a hatchet. Pours motor oil over it and stomps it. Burns the bush. Gets home. Make this post. I'm scared of bushes now. Let me tell you about that one time a weird old man spent an afternoon with me and my family. Not paranormal really, and it has no punchline. 12 years old at the time, raised out in the sticks. Tiny property surrounded by an old wooden fence. There's a country road that runs along the fence for about a mile. Dad and I are outside doing some work one day when we see someone coming down the road. We never see anyone traveling down this road, much less on foot. As the traveler gets closer, we see it's a very old man. He's limping along, carrying a leather satchel on his shoulder. Dad calls out to him, invites him in for lunch. Dad never does this with strangers, but whatever, I don't question my elders. Old man follows me and my dad into the house. Mom serves cornbread and honey, and we eat in a really awkward silence for a while. Then the old man drops his leather satchel onto the table. He begins to tell us a weird story while we're eating. Says he's a root worker, what people in my parts call a power man, from up north. He says he's been traveling for several weeks, pursued by something. I assume he means an animal's been hunting him, but it becomes clear he's talking about some kind of spirit. He just calls it a thing, claims that this thing has been moving west across the Appalachian Trail, more or less following him. A month ago, he stayed with the family in North Carolina, he says, slept overnight in their barn. The next morning, the family's oldest son was found, seemingly strangled in his bed. The family thought the old man had something to do with it. They chased him off the property, but somehow the old man managed to escape. The whole story seems incredibly suspicious to me, but I'm 12 at the time, so what do I know, right? The old man says, it wasn't me that killed the boy, like he's reading my thoughts. Claims that this thing that was following him was responsible for the boy's death. So far, this fella ain't sounding much like a power man to me, but Mom and Dad appear to believe every word he says. Even Dad, who hates people and is very intense, seems really relaxed around this guy. The old man reaches into his leather satchel, leaves his hand in there. I shoot a glance at Dad, no reaction. Feeling very nervous, I decide to just keep my trap shut. Anyway, the old man goes on, says the thing that's following him, whatever it is going to pass through the farm next. He wants to pray with us to keep it from coming and harming us. Parents agree. The old man pulls his hand out of his satchel and reaches for my hand. I'm sitting next to him. Now we're all holding hands around the table. He begins to pray. The prayer is in French, which is weird, but even weirder, his hand starts to get really hot. It feels like when you touch the outside of a hot toaster. By the time the old man is finishing his prayer, his hand is starting to seriously burn. He concludes his prayer, says that we should all be safe, but that we need to be careful for the next few days. We're still holding hands at this point, and I notice his hand is now noticeably cooler. Then he grabs his satchel, gets up, says he's going to move on to the next place to warn the next family. We follow him outside. The three of us watch as he limps down the road. I remember wondering, what is it that he kept in that satchel? 2 days later, one of our cows suddenly die. No obvious cause, just killed over in the field. Otherwise, life goes on as normal. The end. I told this story in a thread I posted yesterday, but I'll post it again before I post my personal story. I need to fill you in on the legend, so strap yourself in. This is the legend of the Lost Lights. It all starts off in the mid-1800s. An expeditionary force of 25 men go exploring in the mountain ranges of BC, looking for a suitable place to start a mine. They hike up a mountain and camp there for the night. That night, one of them gets up to relieve their bowels and trips and hurts their leg in the dark. In the morning, it is decided that the 12 men will help the injured man down the mountain and back to civilization, while the rest of them continue on ahead. So the group splits up. They hike until the evening. One of the men notices that it has gotten considerably colder. It then started to snow. Slightly 1 minute later, he expressed his concerns that they might get snowed over in the night. The others laugh it off. They joked and teased about him being scared. As the evening turned into twilight, it got colder and colder. The snow got heavier and heavier. They had gone away up the mountain, so it was a difficult and deadly situation if the storm got worse. The snow showed no signs of letting up. In fact, it was sure to become a monster storm. The 12 men faced a tough situation. They needed to get back down the mountain, or else they would freeze to death. They left their tents and took what was needed. They started back down the mountain in the raging storm. They each lit their oil lamps as they headed down. Because of the blizzard that ensued, they could hardly see the light of the man in front of them. The man who had noticed the snow earlier had lost sight of the lanterns. In fact, all of them seemed to have. They walked around aimlessly on the mountain, calling out, trying to find each other. Just when it couldn't get any worse, the wind became even stronger. Jacob knew he had to go down the mountain, or he would die there. He stopped trying to find the others and went with the slope, slowly making his way down. He managed to get down the slope and to the base. Jacob ran to find the 13 men that were headed back to get help in rescuing his comrades, but he could not go any further. The storm had spread to the bottom and across the valley. He found a nearby cave where he would spend the night. As the night progressed, he watched the lights of his fellow expeditionaries wander endlessly across the mountain in the hellish snowstorm. Throughout the night, he watched them. The first light went out and disappeared at around midnight. Others followed in the next hours. One by one, they extinguished. Jacob hoped, prayed, that at least one light would last the night. The last one went out 3 hours from the first. All hope was lost. In the morning, when the storm cleared, Jacob headed back further into the valley to find the 13 men that had gone back earlier yesterday. When he found them, there was only 2 left alive. The rest had died in the storm that swept down from the mountain and into the valley. The men and Jacob exchanged stories. The men told Jacob that they had seen the wandering lights up on the mountainside. The 2 men only found out in the morning that 11 men died in the night from the cold. 3 weeks later, an expeditionary force of 20 men, including Jacob, returned to recover anything of those who had died in the storm. They found the remains of the 11 men in the valley easily enough. They recovered their personal effects and what little bone that they could find to bring back to their families. There was not much left of them from the wildlife picking at them. The bodies of the men who died up in the mountain, however, they found no sign of them. Gone without a trace. They searched until dusk, then the air got colder. Light snow began to fall down, just like on the night Jacob's comrades met at their end. They hightailed it down the mountain and into the valley. They made it into the middle of the valley and made camp for the night. Then the storm came down from the mountain and into the valley, just like the last time. Just like the night when Jacob lost his comrades. It got colder and colder in the valley, and as the storm continued to barrel down from the mountain. That night, Jacob and the men saw something that they could not quite believe. They saw lights. Wandering upon the blizzarding mountainside, they watched from the individual tents throughout the night as one by one the wandering lights went out. Jacob knew it must be the spirit of his friends. Jacob wondered why he only saw 10 lights when it was 11 of his friends that disappeared up the mountainside. Had one survived? Could one of his friends still be alive, somewhere lost out in the wilderness? Where was the lost light up on the high? Answers came in the morning, answers of where the lost light went. When Jacob woke up in the morning, the storm had cleared. Jacob and the 9 other men stepped out of their tents. 9 other men. 10 men had died in the cold night. They must have died one by one in the night, succumbing to the cold. One by one, the 10 men's lives snuffed out by the cold, snuffed out like the 10 lights up in the mountainside. And now it's time to share my personal experience with the lost lights. Be me, 35, have 3 teenage boys. Decide to go hiking with my sons, my buddy and his 2 sons. We drive out to the edge of the wilderness at 4 a.m., park the car and start hiking at 4:30. We hike all day, only stopping at noon, shortly for a quick lunch. We are walking at a decent pace. We reach the middle of the valley in the evening. We decide to camp there for the night. We ate a quick dinner. Everyone went to sleep pretty quick after that from being tired from the hiking. Everyone went to bed, but me. I decided to stay up and drink some beers and chillax in a fold-up chair I brought. I sat there staring at the sun that just sat behind the mountain range. It got pretty cold after the sunset. Put my jacket on. Then the fireflies came out. They danced slowly across the shape of the mountain. Those fireflies were pretty weird. They didn't leave the shape of the mountain, and they didn't flash like normal fireflies. Then it hits me. Immediately get up and wake everyone. Tell them to pack their stuff. We gotta move now. My buddy asks, "What's wrong? What happened?" I saw them. Saw what? The lost lights. Buddy looks over my shoulder and sees the lights on the mountainside, but then he notices how cold it has gotten. Buddy rushes to pack up everything with the kids. We hike back as fast as we can. The boys had overheard what me and my buddy were saying. "Dad, what is the lost lights? Why are we leaving right now? Can't we leave in the morning?" "No," I said, and I proceeded to tell them the story of the lost lights while hiking back. At around 2:30 in the morning, we managed to get back into the car. We hightailed it out of there. I dropped my buddy off, and me and my kids go home. I woke up at noon, found out from the weather station that there was a huge snowstorm that swept the valley where we were at last night. Here comes the really scary part. I saw 7 lights up in the mountainside. There were 7 of us on the trip.